All right, so get this. You sent us some research on using insect fat to feed chickens.
Yeah.
Um, might sound a little strange at first.
Definitely raises an eyebrow.
Yeah, but that's exactly why we're doing a deep dive into it today.
Absolutely.
We're looking at a study that tested replacing soybean oil with black soldier fly larva fat in chicken feed.
With soybean prices going up, finding sustainable alternatives is a hot topic. And this research is exploring one really interesting avenue.
So before we jump into the study itself, can you give us a quick rundown on this insect fat? I'll admit, I don't know much about it.
Sure. So we're not talking about tossing whole insects into the feed here.
Okay,
It's all about extracting the fat from black soldier fly larvae,
gotcha.
which actually yields two products, the fat and a protein-rich meal.
Mm.
These larvae can be up to 45% fat.
Wow, 45%. That's more than I would have guessed.
Yeah, making them a surprisingly rich source.
Is there anything in previous research to suggest that this could be a good fat source for chickens?
There have been some promising hints. Previous studies have indicated that black soldier fly larva fat could be a good nutritional fit for chicken diets. And this new research takes a deeper dive into that possibility.
Okay, so let's get into this study. How did they actually test this out?
They took 120 male broiler chickens, all in their final growth phase, and divided them into three groups.
Okay,
Group 1 was the control group receiving a standard diet with soybean oil.
okay.
Group 2 had 50% of their soybean oil replaced with black soldier fly larva fat, and Group 3 went all in on the insect fat with 100% replacement.
Okay, so what happened? Did the chickens on the insect fat diet develop any strange side effects?
None at all.
Really?
And that's the surprising part. All the chickens stayed perfectly healthy.
Wow.
The researchers tracked their growth, how much they ate, and even assessed the quality of the meat.
What were the results?
Even with 100% of the soybean oil replaced, there were no negative impacts on growth feed intake or meat quality.
Oh,
They even ran blood tests checking liver and kidney function, and everything came back normal.
wow.
Further analysis confirmed that the insect fat didn't have any adverse effects on the chicken's health.
So based on this study, it seems like insect fat is just as good as soybean oil when it comes to chicken growth.
Yeah.
What makes this insect fat so effective?
Well, one interesting aspect is that black soldier fly larvae fat shares some similarities with coconut oil, another alternative feed source that's been gaining some traction.
Ah, coconut oil. I've heard it has some nutritional benefits.
That's right. Both black soldier fly larvae fat and coconut oil are high in saturated fats and something called medium-chain fatty acids, or MCFAs.
I've heard of MCFAs, but to be honest, I'm a little fuzzy on why they're so beneficial. Can you refresh my memory?
Sure, MCFAs are thought to be easier for the body to digest and use as energy compared to some other types of fats.
Okay.
There's ongoing research into various potential health benefits, and it seems chickens might benefit from them as well. In fact, studies have shown that coconut oil, with its rich MCFA content, also doesn't have any negative effects on chicken growth.
So we're potentially seeing a trend here with these types of fats being beneficial for chickens. This is all pretty fascinating. At the beginning of our deep dive, I have to admit I was a bit skeptical, but now it's starting to sound like using insect fat could be a real game changer for sustainable chicken production.
I think you're spot on. And this leads us to the bigger picture, which goes beyond just chicken dinners. This research has significant implications for sustainability and the environment.
Absolutely. Let's talk about that. This seems to have sustainable written all over it.
Right. Firstly, insects are a much more sustainable source of both protein and fat compared to traditional options like soybeans. Think about all the resources involved in soybean production: land, water, fertilizer.
Not to mention the environmental impact of clearing land for soybean farming.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And here's where it gets even more interesting. Black soldier fly larvae can actually be raised on waste products like food scraps and agricultural byproducts.
So you're talking about turning waste into valuable resources. That's incredible.
It's a fantastic step towards a circular economy.
Okay, I'm officially blown away. These little larvae are not only nutritious, but they're also eco-warriors. So where do we go from here? What are the next steps for this research?
That's a great question. The study we've discussed focused primarily on the growth of the chickens, but there's still more to explore.
Like what? What other areas should researchers be looking into?
The next big question is how black soldier fly larvae fat affects the quality of the chicken meat.
Interesting. What kind of qualities are we talking about here?
We need to look at things like the flavor texture and even the fatty acid profile of the meat. Does it taste different? Does it cook differently? Does the nutritional makeup of the meat change? These are all questions that future research needs to address.
That makes a lot of sense because even if it's healthy and sustainable, people probably aren't going to eat chicken that tastes or smells strange.
Exactly. Consumer acceptance is a huge part of this equation.
Mm.
But beyond just taste and smell, there's also the potential for the fatty acid profile to actually improve the quality of the meat itself.
How so?
Remember how we talked about those MCFAs in black soldier, fly larvae fat, and coconut oil?
Yeah.
Well, those MCFAs can actually influence the types of fats present in the chicken meat.
So what you're saying is that feeding chickens insect fat could actually make the chicken itself healthier to eat.
Precisely. It's a fascinating possibility. By adjusting the chicken's diet, we might be able to increase the levels of beneficial fatty acids in the chicken meat, which could have implications for human health as well.
Wow, so we're not just talking about sustainable chicken farming, but potentially healthier chicken too. That's a lot to think about.
It really is. It's remarkable to think that something as seemingly simple as changing what we feed chickens could have such a ripple effect impacting both the environment and our own health.
It definitely underscores the interconnectedness of things. This deep dive has already given me a whole new perspective on the potential of insect farming. But I'm also curious, are there any potential drawbacks or concerns researchers are exploring?
Of course. One important consideration is scalability. While the study shows promise, it was conducted on a relatively small scale.
Right.
Can we produce enough black soldier fly larva fat to meet the demands of the entire poultry industry? That's a big question.
That's a good point. It seems like it would take a massive amount of larvae to replace soybean oil on a large scale.
Exactly. So researchers are looking at ways to optimize the production of black soldier fly larvae. They're investigating the ideal conditions for raising them and exploring more efficient methods for extracting the fat.
It sounds like there's a lot of potential here, but also a lot of work to be done before insect fat becomes a mainstream ingredient in chicken feed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the research is progressing rapidly, and I'm optimistic that we'll see some exciting developments in the coming years.
I'm with you on that. This deep dive has been a real eye-opener. I had no idea these little larvae held so much potential.
It just goes to show that sometimes the most unexpected solutions are right under our noses, or really crawling around in our compost bins.
Huh. Well said.
So before we move on, let's take a moment to recap the key takeaways from this research article you sent.
Sounds good. It's easy to get lost in all the fascinating details and lose sight of the big picture.
You're right. So to summarize, this study found that replacing soybean oil with black soldier fly larva fat had no negative effects on the chicken's health or the quality of the meat.
And that's huge because it means we have a potentially more sustainable and environmentally friendly alternative to a key ingredient in chicken feed.
Exactly. But it's important to remember that this is just the beginning. There's still much more to learn about the potential benefits and challenges of using insect fat in animal feed.
It's a whole new frontier of possibilities. I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on this. I'm curious to learn more about black soldier fly farming and other alternative feed sources. Who knows what other surprising solutions are out there waiting to be discovered?
I think we've only just scratched the surface.
This has been a fascinating journey.
It has. And it just goes to show that it's always rewarding to explore new ideas and challenge our assumptions.
And to our listeners, we want to hear from you. What stood out to you in this deep dive? What questions do you still have? Head over to our website or social media to share your thoughts and keep the conversation going.
And for those of you who are as intrigued by this research as we are, I encourage you to do a little exploring of your own.
Yeah.
Look into black soldier fly farming or check out other alternative feed sources. The world of sustainable agriculture is brimming with innovation.
Great idea. You never know what you might find. And be sure to let us know if you uncover any cool discoveries. We're always on the lookout for new deep dive topics.
Speaking of discoveries, before we wrap up, I want to share a thought that's been bouncing around in my head.
Okay.
It connects to what we've been discussing, but it wasn't directly addressed in the research.
Ooh, I love where this is going.
Yeah.
Lay it on me.
We talked about how raising black soldier fly larvae on waste products contributes to a circular economy. But what if we could take that concept a step further and apply it to other environmental challenges?
Now that's interesting. Tell me more.
Well, there's actually research being done on using black soldier fly larvae to break down plastic waste.
Wait, hold on. Insects eating plastic? That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
I know, right? But it's true. Scientists have discovered certain types of plastic-eating bacteria living in the guts of black soldier fly larvae. They're now exploring how we might harness this incredible ability to help us deal with the ever-growing problem of plastic pollution.
Wow, that is mind-blowing. So not only could these larvae help us create a more sustainable food system, but they could potentially help clean up the planet too.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that nature often holds the keys to solving some of humanity's biggest challenges. We just need to be open to exploring those solutions no matter how unconventional they might seem at first.
This whole deep dive has been a fantastic reminder that innovation can come from the most unexpected places. Who had thought that these tiny little larvae could hold such immense potential?
It really speaks to the power of curiosity and the importance of looking beyond the obvious.
Couldn't agree more. It's been such a fascinating conversation, and I feel like we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to learn and explore in this field.
Absolutely. This is an area of research that's rapidly evolving, and I have a feeling we'll be hearing a lot more about it in the years to come.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. It's been an absolute pleasure exploring this topic with you and with our listeners.
The pleasure was all mine. It's always invigorating to discuss these cutting-edge ideas and consider the possibilities for a more sustainable future.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and left you with a sense of wonder about the incredible potential of the natural world. Remember, the future is full of possibilities, and sometimes the smallest creatures can lead us to the biggest breakthroughs. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring. I'm still reeling from that plastic-eating larvae tidbit.
It's pretty remarkable, isn't it? Nature always seems to have a few tricks up its sleeve.
Speaking of surprises, this whole deep dive has been full of them. When I first saw the title of this research, I have to admit I was a little hesitant.
I can imagine insect fat as chicken feed. Doesn't exactly sound appetizing at first glance.
Not at first glance, but the more we dug into it, the more fascinated I became.
It's a testament to the power of keeping an open mind.
Absolutely. So for anyone who's just joining us or needs a quick recap, we've been exploring the idea of replacing soybean oil with black soldier fly larva fat in chicken feed.
And what we've discovered is that it's not only possible,
Yes.
but potentially beneficial on multiple levels.
Right. The research we looked at found no negative impacts on the chicken's health or the quality of the meat when soybean oil was replaced with this insect fat.
And on top of that, there's the huge sustainability factor.
Exactly. Insects require far fewer resources to raise than traditional feed crops like soybeans and black soldier fly larvae can even be raised on waste products.
It's a win-win for the environment and for the potential efficiency of the agricultural industry.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the possibilities of insect farming.
It's an exciting field with so much potential. And it's just one example of the innovative solutions being explored in sustainable agriculture.
I'm curious, for those of us who aren't farmers, is there anything we can do to support this kind of research and development?
That's a great question. One of the most impactful things we can do as consumers is to simply stay informed and be open to new ideas.
So learning about things like insect farming and alternative feed sources is a great first step.
Exactly. The more we understand these innovations, the more likely we are to support them through our purchasing choices and even advocate for policies that encourage their development.
That makes a lot of sense. It all comes back to education and awareness.
It really does. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to making informed decisions about the food we eat and the impact those choices have on the world around us.
Well said. Before we sign off, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners? Any final thoughts to leave them pondering?
I think the biggest takeaway from this deep dive is that we shouldn't be afraid to challenge our assumptions.
I agree. Sometimes the most unconventional solutions turn out to be the most effective.
Exactly. If the idea of feeding insects to chickens can lead to a more sustainable food system and even help address plastic pollution, imagine what other seemingly strange ideas might hold the key to a brighter future.
It's a powerful reminder that innovation can come from anywhere.
And that by embracing curiosity and open-mindedness, we can unlock incredible possibilities.
Well, on that inspiring note, I think it's time to wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. It's been an absolute pleasure exploring this topic with you and with our listeners.
The pleasure was all mine. It's always invigorating to discuss these cutting-edge ideas and consider the possibilities for a more sustainable future.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. If you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends.
And as always, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep an open mind to the wonders of the world around us.
Until next time, stay curious.